Hey y'all, I wanted to hop on here just for a little girl chat. Now, I saw something, actually I've seen several videos on different social media platforms over the past several weeks that kind of raised a red flag for me. And the videos were on the topic of how to get a man to chase you, or how to get him to pursue you, how to make him run after you. And at first I really didn't pay it that much attention, but as I start to see more and more videos like that, it just made me think, what is it that we're thinking when it comes to understanding our value, that we have to manipulate or come up with some type of strategy in order for a man to identify us? So, as I was looking at these videos and I'm looking at all these views that, the videos have, and I'm like, looking at, some had millions of views. And I'm like, are we really operating from a place that we have to manipulate a man to want to be with us? And look, this is no dig at all, because believe me, I know we've all been at a place where we're in a relationship with a guy, or we're dating a guy, or we're just even having communication. We're text messaging, we're talking on the phone, we're getting to know someone, and it's like, okay, why is the communication dropping? Why does it feel like I'm the one putting in, but it's not being reciprocated back to me? And believe me, I know how it feels to be at a point where you're like, well, what is going on? Is something wrong with me? Am I not good enough? Did I do something? And I know some people are like, oh, well, no, I don't feel that way. But reality is, when you're putting in and you're not getting back, it does make you wonder if there's something that you're doing, or if it's something about you that you need to change, or that you need to adjust, so that this person can give you more attention. So, I wanted to just briefly chat our Wednesday wellness chat, our girl chat. I just wanted to just briefly chat on this topic of why we're at this point now where we feel like we have to get a man to chase us, or to see us, or to give us attention. And I wrote down some notes. So I'm looking down at what I wrote. And, what it all boils down to, when you're focused on whether or not this man is communicating with you or giving you the attention you want, you're wasting time and energy on other things that you could be doing. Now let me break this down for you. So the thing is, and again, when I say this, I'm saying this from experience. I've been on that side, and now I'm on another side where I'm not wasting time and energy for someone to like me. Either you're going to like me or you're not. And the thing is, and we'll get into this, but once you get to a point where you truly do say, okay, God, I surrender this part of my life to you. When it comes to relationships, you align me with the individual, or whoever it is, my husband, my to-be husband. You carry out that process. You get me through that process that I need to go through, first of all, to make sure I'm good. And then once I'm good, you align me with this person that you have for me. So that's the other side of wanting to find out how to chase a man, or how to get a man to chase you. So the first thing is, we have to stop wasting time and energy on someone that God did not intend for you to be with. Because if you have to put that much effort into attaining someone's attention, if you have to jump over hoops, if you have to manipulate, if you have to come up with a plan, if you have to do little schemes in order to get a man's attention, that man is not for you. And maybe he's just not for you at that time. So in the meantime, you can't waste your time. You can't waste your energy on trying to make him see your value. And if it's not the person that God intended for you to be with, you're really wasting your time at that point, which is why it's so important to allow God to guide you through the process and to surrender that portion of your life when it comes to relationships. Surrender that portion to God and trust him to carry that out for you. So I didn't look through all of these videos, but as I did kind of skim through them, there was one consistency in listening to these videos. And the consistency was the thought of us ladies thinking that because we weren't getting the attention that something was wrong with us. And trying to figure out, why doesn't he want me back when I'm putting all of this effort, I'm putting all of this energy, but he's not giving it back to me? What's wrong with me? So if that man is not checking for you and trying to not just build a relationship, but establish a covenant with you and God, stop wasting your time and energy. Let him go. And when I say not just building a relationship, I mean, when you understand your value, you will know you're better than just a girlfriend or a side chick or somebody to just kill time with until they figure out what they want. You're better than that. And that's why I say the person should be someone who just doesn't want to have a relationship, but who wants to build covenant with you, a covenant between you and God. When this man sees you, he knows your value. He understands what he has. He's not going to let that go because he sees you the way God sees you. And we have to understand that even in this process of, if you're dating, if you're in a dating process, if you're in a time in your life where you are waiting for God to connect you to your spouse, you have to understand that when you're doing it God's way, if that's your goal, you can't rely on how the world instructs you to date or how the world instructs you to get connected to a person. You can't rely on the world's strategies to get you to what God has for you. The only way to get to what God has for you, if that is your intent, is by doing things God's way. It's not by scheming or manipulating, getting a man to chase you in order to receive his attention or to feel valued or to feel wanted by him. Now, when you surrender your relationship to God, you trust him to bring you to your husband. You trust God to bring you to your husband. Remember Adam and Eve. Once Eve was done, Adam identified her. You're trusting God to get you prepared. And once God sees that, okay, the time is right, you're good to go, you're ready, that's when Adam will identify you. That's when your Adam will identify you. When the time is right. Now, trusting God does not include trying to figure out how you can get a man to chase you. If you're trying to figure out how to do it on your own, you don't trust God. And it's just, I mean, it's as simple as that. If you're trying to do things on your own and you're trying to control that situation, that means you're putting your hands in it because you want to make things work the way you want to. And at that point, you're not trusting God to carry out the plan he has for you. And we can say that we trust God with our relationships, that we trust God to bring us to our spouse. But if you're dipping and dabbing and you're trying to manipulate and you're trying to do this and you're trying to figure out, well, if I do this, is he going to like me? Or if I post this picture on social media, is he going to see it and respond? When you start doing things like that, you're not trusting God. You're putting it in your own hands. And I want you to think about this. Dating is not specifically mentioned in the Bible, but we can take examples from the Bible of people, individuals pre-marriage, to see how they arrived at that point where they were married, where they did have a covenant with God. And when you take individuals like Adam and Eve, did you see Eve chasing Adam? No, you didn't. When you take individuals like Esther and King Xerxes, did you see Esther chasing after him? She didn't. It says Esther found favor in the eyes of King Xerxes. He identified her. She wasn't chasing after him. She wasn't manipulating the situation. And you think about with Esther, as many of, if you don't know the story of Esther, you got to go read it. But in that story, Esther was one of many women who was chosen to be a part of this group where the king could choose to see which woman he wanted to marry. Who did he want to be the next queen? There were so many women. And even in that situation where there were all of these, there was a slew of women, Esther did not manipulate the situation. She didn't go trying to throw herself at Xerxes or make a scene or, do all of these extra things so she could be seen by him. When God has a plan, God is going to carry out that plan. And when he saw her, the first time he saw her is when she won favor with him. No manipulation. When you read about Ruth and Boaz, you don't hear about Ruth manipulating Boaz. You don't see Ruth chasing Boaz. You don't see Rachel chasing Jacob. So in the Bible, none of these women who were married prior to marriage, none of them were chasing after the man. None of them were using tactics to manipulate and scheme so they could get attention from a man. When their husbands found them, they weren't obsessing over the man. They were doing their thing. And that's when they were identified. They didn't need the attention. They were doing what God told them to do. They were doing what they were supposed to do. They were properly positioned. And that's when God sent the man, and the man found them, identified them. Remember, we talked about last year in a few videos about he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. The word find, sometimes we just think, oh, I'm looking. But find, another word for find is identify. So when he identifies you, it may be somebody that you've known for years, but he's identified you. He may not have come to you and said anything, but God has identified you to him. So that's why it's important too not to manipulate and scheme, because you do want him to see your true identity. And you want him to see you the way that God sees you. Not that scheming, manipulative patterns of behavior, but the way God sees you. So when you consider using tactics on how to get him to chase you, sometimes we don't realize it, and it can sometimes seem like it's harmless, or it's not that serious. I just want to see if this works to get his attention. It may seem harmless, but if you think about it, when you're operating out of your own will and emotions, and you're trying to get someone to do something that you want them to do, because ultimately that's what it is. They're not paying you the attention that you want. You're giving them attention. They're not giving it back. So it's like, okay, let me figure out what I can do to get them to give it to me back. And what we don't realize is what I said earlier. It's manipulation. And manipulation is actually a form of witchcraft. I know this may be like, okay, ho, but it is. And I'll show you, I'll tell you, when I looked up the definition of manipulation, it says to control or play upon, or to control or play upon, unfair, insidious, especially to one's own advantage. So you're controlling and you're playing upon someone else's moves, but you're using tactics and schemes to play upon how they respond back to you for your own advantage, because you want the attention. And I know when you put it that way, it's like, whoa, is that what I'm really doing? I didn't think of it like that before. It didn't sound that severe. It sounded real harmless. But when you think about it that way, of when you're manipulating, when you're scheming, you are playing on that person because you want them to see something or feel something, and you're imposing something on them so that they will feel a certain way and give you what you want. And I looked up the definition of witchcraft. It's an irresistible influence or fascination. So what you're doing when you're manipulating how to get him to chase you. If you want him, this is what you need to do. If you've been listening to stuff like that and you've actively been doing that, just ask God to forgive you. It's just that simple. God, forgive me, and just stop from this point on. Because that's not your intention. And God knows that. But sometimes we can get to a point where you really want something that you're not seeing clearly. And we talk about manipulation. The enemy will manipulate you to think, okay, well, it's okay to do that. I'm not doing anything to harm them. But in actuality, you are. You're trying to control and play off of someone else's emotions for your advantage. So if you're having to do all of that, that means, and you think about it, why would you even want that? That means the emotions, what they're doing is not genuine. When you're in a relationship, you want the feelings to be genuine. You want that person to be there because they want to be there, not because you twisted their arm or you did something to make them feel like they're obligated. You want them to be there because they want to be there. It's that simple. So, and I want you to think about this. And it can happen, and you don't even realize it. Where your prayer has been, God, I'm waiting on you. Or you say, God, send me my husband. But then you find yourself at a place of, you meet somebody, and then you start this game, this getting him to chase you, getting him to want you. And God is like, but hold on. Didn't you ask me to bring this to pass for you? Didn't you give this to me? So if you did, why are you doing this? I got this. Give it to me. Give it all to me. Because the thing is, when God does it, when you fully trust him and you allow him to put everything together, when you get to that point where you are with that man that God has for you to be with, it's going to feel so surreal, and it's going to feel just right because God put it together. So if you ever get to that point, or if you're at the point where you are like, okay, how can I get him to see me? How can I stop and understand your value? See yourself the way God sees you. Because when you do, you're not going to jump through hoops, and you're not going to try to come up with plans and schemes to be in this man's presence, or to automatically bump into him, or, oh, I called you, I didn't mean to call you, but since you're on the phone, let's talk. No. When you see your value and you know who you are, you're not going to have to resort to tactics to get a man to chase you. And if that man cannot see your value and does not know how to properly manage your heart, he's not the one. He's not the one. Because God is not going to allow you to be broken, to be hurt, for your heart to be shattered. So even in the process, when you start to feel that pushback from someone, now I'm not saying that pushback is always wrong. It depends on the situation and what's going on. But what I'm talking about is when the person is consistently showing you that they're not interested, and you're not getting the attention that you want, but for some reason it's like you feel like you have to continue that relationship. You have to do something to get that person's attention. That means if you have to do that, they don't know how to properly value you or manage your heart. And that's not God's plan for you. Understand your value. Understand how beautiful, how precious you are to God. When you look at yourself in the mirror, see yourself the way God sees you, not how the world sees you, not how you think the man who's not calling you back or showing you attention, or the men who are not showing you attention. Forget about them. It's not about them. It's about how God sees you. And once you get to that point where you understand your value, when you truly understand your value, the man who comes along will see the same thing you see. And he'll look at you and he'll see all of the qualities, all of the traits, everything that God created when he created you. This man will see the value, and he won't let go, because he will know who you are. He will identify you. He will find you. And he's not going to mismanage. because he'll know that you're right for him. So I wanted to chat on here about this because I've seen it more and more with these videos, how to get a man to chase you. That's not necessary. That's the world's way of doing things. When you're doing things God's way, it's all about seeing yourself the way God sees you, understanding your value, and allowing God in your process. You loving yourself, understanding your value, understanding how God sees you, and letting God work on you in the process of getting you to your husband. That should be what singleness looks like. Not trying to manipulate and scheme and try to get a man, and maybe someone who's not even for you, trying to get his attention. And you think about it, you waste all of that time and energy, and it's like God's like, but that's not who I have for you. So it's like, I understand how much of a challenge it can be, especially when the world is saying that dating or getting to your spouse should look different. It's all about you being proactive, you doing this, you doing that. Well, girl, you don't have to wait. You can get out and do it yourself. Let's go back to Eve. Let's go back to Esther. Let's go back to Ruth. Let's go back to Rachel. What were they doing? They were doing them. And the men identified them. So you don't have to chase. You don't have to chase. You don't have to scheme. You don't have to manipulate. You are more than enough. So let God love on you. Let him work on you. And when you do, when you keep your focus on him, he will bring that person to you. That person will identify you. So ladies, I just wanted to share this with you. And remember, you are more than enough. See yourself the way God sees you.